So obviously, if you own a car, it takes up one parking spot's worth of space at home. The end, short video. But if you think about it, at night, save for the unfortunate souls working the graveyard shift, most parking lots at places like Walmart are empty. And during the day, when most people are out, parking lots are full and parking spaces at home are empty. So each car needs additional parking to facilitate transportation. If the world had exactly enough parking, then people couldn't really go anywhere. A simple assumption we could make would be every car needs two spots, one at home and one not at home. But this neglects how different people can use the same spot at different times, and how different locations will have more people at different times. Basically, there needs to be a design safety factor that accounts for cars being in different places at different times. A better approximation we could use would be looking at Los Angeles, not because I live there or anything, and seeing that there's roughly 3.3 parking spots per person, according to some UCLA study. But this is just the number of parking spaces, not the additional space that gets taken up because cars need to maneuver around the parking lot. For simplicity's sake, we can say that for each parking spot, an additional car width of space is required for cars to drive around the lot, which mathematically happens to work out to be around an extra 0.47 parking spaces per parking space. Taking away one parking space because let's be conservative and assume residential parking doesn't have the same issue, and we'd have roughly 4.3 parking spaces per car. But cars also need streets and roads. Now it's hard to say exactly how cars affect the number and size of roads, because if everyone stopped driving, trucks and buses would probably still use them. But as a baseline, we can use the actual space they physically take up while driving, because that space a delivery vehicle or a bus could have used to drive faster or something. The average American drove roughly 1 hour per day in 2022, and assuming an average of 2 car lengths, because most people are probably going to be stuck in traffic for a good portion of the time, that comes out to be about 1/12 of a parking spot per day. Add it together with the 4.3 parking spaces from before, and we get roughly 4.4 parking spaces per car, or roughly 673 square feet, or roughly 62.5 square meters, which is more than a typical one-bedroom apartment. Okay, getting off topic because it's the end of the video, but why are people so obsessed with fucking cars? Well, if a car takes up 4.4 parking spaces and we subtract 1 for the space it physically takes up at any given time, it takes up 3.4 extra parking spaces. If we conveniently ignore the dot by zooming out because cars zoom by everything all the time, we get 34. Rule 34. The joke is always porn. So this is me about a week later. 4.3 parking spaces is way too much of a lowball and overcomplicated everything, but I left it in because I'm a child when it comes to humor. From the same UCLA study and using some unit conversions, the same study gives us about 6.46 parking spaces per car, which, being completely honest, I'm not sure how they got their numbers. The only relevant number is the actual area taken up by parking spaces.